Are you one of those people who think that Baywatch is all about beautiful Californians running on a gorgeous sun-kissed beach? Well, you'd be right, because that's the beauty of it. Baywatch, Saturday 5:20 UTV.
Welcome to part 2 of Chat Schmat's look back at Baywatch Nights. In the first part, we examined Season 2 and the characters and the audience for this show, and the significant change between Season 1 and Season 2. And in this episode, we're looking at our favourite episodes from Season 2 of Baywatch Nights and our least favourite episodes. On top of that, we're going to be discussing suggestions from the internet and from ourselves about future spin-offs, and to look and examine our fantasy Season 3 and beyond. Join us, won't you, for the final of 2 parts looking at Baywatch Nights. And we'd like to apologise once more that some sections of this are out of sync, but that is because it was recorded as a live stream. However, this has been rectified as best as possible, so most of it is in sync, but there are a couple of occasions when it goes out of sync. This shouldn't spoil your enjoyment of the podcast. The nights will never be the same.
So we thought we'd look at a few episodes as examples and talk about them. Episode 3 is called The Strike, and I was unlucky enough just to watch it the other night. It opens, I just want to read you what I've written on the opening. So it opens at the beach with all these beautiful women walking about. Mitch is at his lifeguard's tower watching beautiful bodies, and a teenager in a shirt. He takes off his shirt, his back's to Mitch. Mitch smiles and laughs from the tower. Then goes back to the kid who's fitting some wristband on. Mitch shakes his head. He puts his hand over his brow, and the kid walks into the water like it's his first time. Mitch leans forward, confused, back to the kid, and in no time at all, in knee-high water, he's splashing around. Cut to Mitch, who runs out, brings him out, and tells him to take it easy on the sand while they're on the sand. And he takes the kid's hand to shake it. He says, "By the way, my name's Mitch. What's yours?" And then as he's taking the kid's hand, they're both struck by lightning, which kind of plays out to me as if Mitch is hitting on this underage boy and admiring him. Obviously, it's telekinesis by lightning strike.
I have to admit, the first time when I was watching that episode, when I watched that bit, I was actually wondering, they're not going to do the old switchery episode where they switch bodies, but no, it's I thought
similar. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, being able to hear Mitch and this child being linked, and they could sort of hear each other's thoughts, without talking. Was interesting, although seeing them getting struck by lightning,
it was like, what the hell that come from? But the thing is, what made me laugh was a bit in the car where Mrs. just driving. Okay, tell me where you are. I'm at a building. I'm at a corner here. Okay, that's.
So they're being chased by one of this kid's sort of extended family, who's like this large bald man with a silly mustache,
like a paramount bounty hunter.
Yeah, very much that sort of vibe. Why did you guys choose this one as a memorable one for you?
Because who doesn't need a kid who can press his fingers to the telephone to get it to work without putting money in, to start your car without having to turn the key? I
think for me, though, it's a case of Mitch knows this happened to him, but he's still a skeptic about all these things. This was something very, very clearly that happened to him. And it was also the first episode of season 2 I watched.
Also, I think it was the first episode of season 2 that had our favorite location, the warehouse.
Or the warehouse.
I think you'll need to explain that a bit more, Neil.
Well, there's been quite a few episodes where they're often in a warehouse. It always looks like they went to the same warehouse exterior or interior for a number of the episodes. So if you do keep watching it, you might see that same warehouse.
So anybody want to take a guess at how many episodes out of 22 are shot in this same warehouse?
Well, there are some episodes
14?
where they're not entirely in the warehouse, but they dip into it for a little bit and come back out.
Yeah.
So probably more than you think.
I would guess Ian's guess of 14 is probably...
People aren't sure because although they used that warehouse a lot, apparently they did use 2 or 3 warehouses. So maybe from the inside they look very similar, but...
Also, Starfleet Academy was used twice as well. The exterior of what was used for Starfleet Academy and Next Generation Voyager was actually used as exterior for a couple buildings in Baywatch Nights as well.
Are you ready to enter the exciting academic world of nightology?
You got a quarter?
Try it now.
You ever been to Vegas?
Hey, where are you?
I don't know.
Well, describe it, son. What do you see?
I'm at a corner. A street corner.
So, what, I'll go around you all, but what would you say is the best episode, the best written? I know that's going to be a hard... But, what episode really worked in terms of story for you guys?
I know what mine is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's called An Ill Wind, which is something like episode 19. And it involves, it's a hokey concept. There's a character twirling a scythe that makes a wind that encourages people to fight one another and to try and kill themselves. So
the concept is the wind is driving people insane. Is what the blurb says here, which says it all.
M. Night Shyamalan must have stolen that idea for the happening.
Anyway, go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
So Mitch and Ryan and Tate go to the source of this, and this is what I guess why I like it so much, because it's kind of like a little road movie, and along the course, various things happen. Where Teague wants to get to the source, but Mitch wants to stop and help break up the various fights that are happening, or talk people down from ledges, or whatever. So there's a real structure to it. There's some great dialogue. All the actors seem to be sort of their game seems to be a lot better than usually. So that's
wasn't there a scene? It was quite uncomfortable to watch, but wasn't there a scene where this woman is on top of like a camper or something with a baby, and it almost looks like she's going to throw the baby off and Mitch goes up and manages to save the day.
Plus as well, you've got Teague in the whole episode almost with them. He's in the car, he's on the scene with them. He doesn't just show up and then go away again.
That's true. Yeah, he's there the whole time. But that's the difference between Mitch and Teague. Teague is very on mission, always on mission. But Mitch has to help people. Even though Teague said, look, there's very little you can do. We have to stop this at the source. Mitch still has to try because he wouldn't be able to...
Also, just a side note, whenever he said we have to try and find the source, this is something I noted before, that after this series, he went on to be in Charmed. And everybody knows the first couple of series of Charmed, there was the source of all evil, which they called the source, and they were always trying to defeat the source. So when he said it in this episode, it was kind of like yes, very funny.
So don't piss off Teague, or he'll leave you to help some other people on another show.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Get it done by any means.
The bees! I had to get rid of the bees! The bees, are they all gone?
No, hey, there's no bees.
What are you talking about?
Hikers. Both adult. Disappeared 4 days ago.
Why didn't you tell us that?
You didn't ask.
You are a piece of work.
Give it a whack! Give it a whack! Mitch! It's the stick. He's using it to control the wind. I'm gonna fight him!
sorry about the stick thing.
It's okay. It's okay.
Do you guys have favorite episodes here?
Yeah, mine, again, it's probably because it feels like the most X-Files-y type of show is Space Spore.
Yeah, that.
I quite enjoyed, it's basically a space shuttle drops a load of dust on this field, and all hell breaks loose, and you've got the authorities involved. You got Teague and Mitch. I thought it felt like something the X-Files would actually do.
So, can I just shout out here to our friends at Evenings with Mitch Buchanan podcast. They're covering nights, and they've been very nice to us so far. They described this episode in their title as spontaneously combusting pets.
Yes.
There's a mouse with a firecracker up its ass. And
yep.
Acts a cat who also has a firecracker up its ass.
I have it on good authority though. The mouse was okay. It didn't get hurt in the filming. But yeah, that was probably my favorite because, and the dog, and that's the one where we talked about Griff being the guy that can get anything. That's the episode I think where Mitch says, "Get me an ambulance."
That's what I was saying before. Yeah, that's the one scene you see say there he shows up like that. Being as useful as ever, because if you notice in the previous episodes, Mitch has to prize him away from some girl or something. Yes. Are you doing anything? Are you busy? Can you spy on this girl for me, please?
I also want to give an honorable mention to the one where I can't remember the name. It's the one where Mitch gets possessed.
Hi, guys. Come on in. Join me. I insist.
Oh, yes, that is.
The Eighth Seal, it's called.
Oh, yeah. And the fact
his acting is great, and the fact that they bring in the character Stephanie Holden into the episode. The spoiler: she's already dead at this point, but Mitch is near death, and he sees the light, and Stephanie's there in her Baywatch swimsuit, telling him it's not his time. I'm not saying it's a good written episode, but it out of all the episodes, I thought that was fun.
It's the one that drew me into the second season, because I saw the clip of that on YouTube and I wondered what it was, and to me it's one of the most entertaining.
Andy's shaking his head.
Tell me something.
Andy's shaking his head.
I might have regretted that episode.
Tell me something.
I can see why it's a waste.
Did she die in her swimsuit? Did she die in her ribs? So why the hell were ghosts be in a swimsuit?
Yeah, this continuity.
Because that's how Mitch remembers her.
What does Mitch do when he's possessed?
He sort of he's quite angry, and he goads the other characters. He's like, it's like Mitch if Mitch was on Stella, drinking several pints of Stella. That's what he's like when he's possessed. That's the best way to describe it.
One of the ones I liked, that I thought was funny, but probably for different reasons, is the vampire one.
Well, see, that was going to be my favorite one.
Johnny, tell us about it.
Well, because the thing was, it wasn't a good episode. The question was, what was the sort of well-written? It wasn't well-written at all, but it was, to me, I didn't come into the show looking for something well-written. Thank God for that, because I didn't get that. But what I was looking for was to be entertained. And I found that the Eighth Seal one was anytime Hoff has to either be possessed or there's two of them. To me, I'm on board with that. But in this one was called Night Whispers, and I was saying earlier about this, but the one my favorite line is obviously the main thing about this episode is that this vampire, has not really thought about men in hundreds of years, but suddenly she sees Mitch and she's smitten with him, and he tries to seduce her in the end. And as she comes towards him, he's like, "Back off, Batwoman!" There's just kind of little lines like that Mitch throws around, and
fascinating and most attractive.
What episodes do you think are the ones that are not so good? The ones that you want?
Christ, do we have to?
What was the worst episode for you?
The purpose of this podcast is to talk you all out of ever watching Baywatch Nights ever. Season 1, you might be able to dip into it, but season 2, red tape in front of it. I watched one last week. I can't remember what it was.
The Vortex. It's the one where I think it's the Vortex.
The
Yeah,
one
it's
that we
meant to
watched?
stay off.
Something like that. Some great
No.
elements in it. So essentially, Ryan and Mitch they're like there's doubles created of them that so time travel as ghosts. I'm not really sure. There's some great elements in it, but
Native American magic.
there's Malu. Every episode where there's a foreign magician, they sing Malu all the time. So the Vortex was very much like Baywatch Nights is a child who goes into their toy box and starts pulling out all their toys. And some of the toys are beautiful, they're handcrafted. Some of them are top of the range figurines. Most of them are sort of rip-off pound store variants, but the child has them all lined up, set out quite neatly. And then the child goes and smashes them all, stands on them, throws them against the window. That's kind of what the Vortex did. And a lot of episodes do.
But just because I want to spend my day off at the water where I work doesn't mean I'm taking a busman's holiday. Fortunes? Oh, come on. You don't believe in that stuff, do you? Oh, the death card. Sure puts a crimp in my day off. It's my day off. I'm not courageous.
You're courageous on your day off.
I'm not saving any lives today.
You will see your own future through there, through the vortex.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Very funny.
I know, it's not very funny, but come on, let's get the hell out of here. It's my only day off. What?
And they were farming. And what about this dirt? You see what I see? Do you have a name of the guy? Do you have a name of the ship?
God.
Okay, yeah. All right, fine, bye.
Wonderful. My only day off, we get a call from Teague.
Hi, I'm Andy Luke, and I host the Drill Luke podcast, which goes out through nerdgeist.com and then Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and it goes to my Patreon 7 days early at patreon.com/Andy Luke, where for about 30p a month I provide my patrons with original art to their doors, with weekly poems, short stories, comics, and blogs, as well as getting this early.
Well, I was a bit disappointed with the episode where they are supposedly going through this vortex into the future, because it was one of those ones where they had an opportunity to show something a bit interesting in it that you didn't necessarily have to do much to show the future, whereas they just went inside the same sort of warehouse setting, and you didn't really see much. There was nothing visually realized that was really great about that episode. I mean, the concept was great, but it didn't sell it to me.
The concept at the end, they sort of realize Earth's in trouble for various different reasons, and I think that's when Mitch uses that as an excuse to sort of come on to Ryan at the end, which I thought was quite strange. You've just learned that the Earth's kind of in a lot of danger and messed up, and all you can think to do is now's a good time to ask Ryan.
The other episode that I mentioned there, that we could talk about the cabinet, the Dungeons and Dragons game, it felt like that was another one. It felt like that was an interesting idea, but it was like it wasn't executed well, because how can you do an online video game role play without an actual computer? They just go in. And
it's one of those ones, like it was a thing in the 90s where they said, let's go inside the computer. We'll and it was never ever convincing, The one show that did do it well was The New Adventures of Superman, where they did it. But even then, it's the same idea. You shrink down and go into the computer.
I think also they mentioned that there was a computer, but you never see a computer or any sort of computer equipment.
Yeah, that's the confusing thing.
You
have to use your imagination too much.
The most high-tech thing you see in the episode is a big giant dice.
Mm.
You know,
a very novelty. It looked like a novelty dice.
And that's another example of the thing going on there. Who doesn't want a big giant dice to just roll about their home? You know.
It was confusing though, wasn't it? You know, as to what was what, or where was where. You know, where were they? What was it? You know, they had to tell you the whole episode. This is this. You know, like exposition every 2 seconds. You know,
they were definitely having this spoon feed you. You know,
one thing
what was going on.
As a writer, there's a lot of instances in the scripts for various episodes where there's a scene, a dialogue, say between Mitch and Ryan, and you can see when you present a scene, you should only be able to see that draft on the page. It's like they haven't deleted the previous drafts. So what you'll get is a conversation, and it's clear the lines have been out of order. They're, you know, this maybe they're on Windows 95 and they're still getting the hang of cut and paste. And so the, you know, one line about 2 lines before where it should. And it's, yeah, it is quite funny. Do we want to talk about tonight's season finale then? And I think we shouldn't give away any sort of big reveals, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean that it is kind of hard because without spoiling it, the only interesting sort of thing almost happens at the very, very end. But it was pretty much like a standalone episode.
It's a real move in the Mitch T. Ryan love triangle, I think. I've got down Ryan's sexy gravelly voice because wow, that's amazing. Test card picture. So basically the last episode revolves around a house that is haunted because in the middle of it there is a picture of a child or a woman that looks like the test card picture that we used to see in the British terrestrial stations. It sees the return of Garner along with his, I thought it was his daughter or his wife.
Niece.
Niece, I think, yeah.
Niece.
I thought it was his daughter or his wife originally, but they confirmed that it was his niece there.
There's some genuinely spooky ventriloquism at the start of it, where she starts speaking with Ryan's voice. There's also a strobe knife. Every time this knife goes off, strobes flash around the room, which, you know, as an epileptic, I didn't particularly enjoy that. At one point, Mitch asks Garner to press the picture. Garner goes over and touches it, and Mitch disappears.
I didn't get that.
Anybody understand?
No. Why did Garner not go? But
you see, Garner touched the edge of the picture and went, "Please take Mitch. Please take Mitch."
The Dutch camera angles. I have never seen this much Dutch camera angles since Battlefield Earth.
In this one, it was definitely at the start. It was like,
it's very jarring.
The Dutch camera angle is shaky cam or a tilted camera.
Yeah, think of the buildings there in Batman.
To describe it, it's basically a camera at an angle, and from what I've read up on it, it's the Contained Mansion. Is that right? You guys.
It also could be used to disorientate you as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it definitely does in Baywatch Nights.
Clearly, it says a disorientation, but the reason why in Batman, it's most famously used in the 60s Batman. Every time you're in the villains there, it was always at an angle, and that was to show how crooked the villains were. You
know. Maybe the Dutch camera angles are supposed to evoke the sense of the sea.
They usually, you know, we'll take the last episode, for example. The people at the start drive up to this house and, you know, you see them driving on the road, pulling up to this haunted house. And, like, it's just a driving scene, you know, but yet the Dutch camera angle is there. And you're like, wow.
I did note that I felt seasick watching it, so...
I did.
Yeah.
I wonder if the cameraman's just drunk to get through the episode filming.
It also makes it, I don't know, I think it makes the series look cheaper, almost.
used here and there,
yeah,
it works, especially when they talk to Teague and he's being mysterious. That sort of moving around with
Yeah.
him in the room works to a degree, but that sort of thing there where they were just driving along, I agree with you there that I do think it doesn't really add anything. Do you think, here's a question that I have. What do you think would improve the series? Do you think more money would have helped, or do you think it was doomed regardless?
Doomed, I think.
Tough question. I think obviously better scripts wouldn't have hurt. But I think even if they had more money and even if they had better scripts, it was going to come across as an X-Files ripoff. And sometimes that's not, and it's hard to get around that.
So final double question. What might they have done if there'd been a series 3, and what would you have done with series 3? I mean, there was one YouTube commenter who thought that they should reinvent the show with each season as they did for 1 and 2. So we might get season 3, Mitch is a superhero. Season 4, he travels through time and solves crimes. Where do you think it might have gone?
Well, personally speaking, I think it might have gone more into Teague's backstory. I think he, although having said that, the question is, certain things happened at the end of the episode that might not have worked. So if they'd known that they were cancelled, they've done a certain thing at the end. But now that they've got a 3rd season, they might stretch the chemistry out between the 2 main characters. But I noticed if they have that will they won't they situation in a lead, then if they get together at any stage, it kind of fizzles out the show. So maybe by focusing more on the likes of Teague and Griff and Donna, maybe they might have been able to do something. But realistically, I don't think that show would have gone beyond there, because it's its own victim. It doesn't have enough originality to propel it. They would have to do a Star Trek Discovery and reinvent the whole show completely again. But I don't see it as a every season thing. I just see it as a soft reboot.
Johnny, what if you were showrunner?
If I was showrunner of Baywatch Nights?
Go for it.
Well, if I like the X-Files thing. I'm a big fan of the paranormal. I have my own paranormal website, and I'm a member of the Northern Ireland UFO Society. So I would stick with that, but I would certainly get more money. I would be these days there's plenty of places that will give you money if you have a big enough audience. So their problem was that they didn't have that, but these days Kickstarter and all that sort of thing, you just cult status, all that. You would definitely get money for it now.
One of the things I would probably like to do is, if you want to go back to the X-Files mentality of it, is that the X-Files had a thing where you had standalone episodes, Nick the Monster Week episodes, plus you had stories that were called the mythology ones, the other ones that built on his art. Now there was a couple of episodes like the Illuminati thing, where he's getting tortured by these devices that were hinting at an arc, or hinting at something more happening behind the scenes of being manipulated. Now, I would be interested to try and develop that into mythology for the show.
You're talking about Teague. You're talking about Teague and his group of people.
Yeah,
and the Knights Templar and all that stuff.
Yeah, maybe make that as part of the mythology of the show, where the X-Files had the syndicate and all. Maybe you could have developed the mythology, so you move you still have the Monster of the Week, but you move away from the Monster of the Week thing, and maybe give a reason, and maybe that would help explain the biggest mystery of why come to Mitch. Maybe develop why this mysterious CIA FBI guy is coming to this lifeguard. Maybe this mythology could be used to develop it so that it's kind of become its own show. It kind of have a direction, answer some of the mysteries, but keep building the mystery, and maybe bring Griffin, Donna into that circle, that they get brought in as extra investigators, instead of just being there for no apparent reason.
if I can just jump in with that there, I mean, I'd written on one of my notes the Baywatch triangle. So I think, yeah, the whole sort of how everything connects, you know, that we're seeing various aspects and not just random crap thrown up against the wall. But there is a link that I don't know if Mitch had chosen one or whatever. What do you think, Ian?
For me, I would change the format slightly, keep the X-Files thing, do maybe a bit more of a story arc, that's fine. But I would almost split the episodes. I would have the Monster of the Week as the B story and have the A story about the characters. Because my biggest problem with it, again, I know I've said this probably many times, but I just don't particularly like the characters. You know, I don't feel like I know them, with the exception of Mitch, and that's just because I watch Baywatch. But you know, in Baywatch, if you look at the format of Baywatch, yes, you have the story, whatever's happening on the beach or whatever the main story is, but you also have whatever's happening in Mitch's private life, in the lifeguards' private lives. You have none of that in Nights, so there's no character
Ian,
development.
would you say?
So I would
you
have.
say, Ian, that they're two-dimensional? Yeah,
Yes,
because that's what I meant to say. That's what I was getting at. Donna and Griff in particular are two-dimensional.
So I would make the Monster of the Week story the B story and have the A story relating to their characters and what they're going through at the time. And that way, what you can do is, that way you can develop your characters, but still keep the concept.
Would you do a comedy episode?
Why not? It's worked for a lot of other shows.
What about a musical one?
I never got into the musical episode things. Like, everybody loves the Buffy musical episode. I think it's the biggest pile of rubbish, but that's just me.
No, I agree. I do agree. It makes me cringe, but it's the Hoff. Come on, it's the Hoff. You have to.
In fairness, yeah. What? Maybe he could sing. You know, freedom or looking for freedom. Is that what it's called? You know, for some reason in the show.
Well, the Donna Feeling music video by the Hoff is pretty much representative of the randomness of Baywatch Nights. I'd love to see Dorian Gregory do his dance moves. I'll tell you what I have down for the direction it might go in, right? So I think it would have aired close to 2001. So we certainly would have had Baywatch Nights versus Al Qaeda. I think the return of the Illuminati, more high-tech stuff like CD-ROMs and more dial-up. And I don't believe in conspiracy theories.
What about the Millennium Bug?
Wow. And you know that's actually going to be a bug and a proper insect that's going to destroy the world's systems.
Yeah. You know what they should have had? They should have had a Tooth Fairy there just as a monster, in there. So just so that Mitch has to go, yeah, I do believe the Tooth Fairy.
The other thing I was thinking, you know, about season 3 onwards, is it plausible to keep Mitch as the main character and have him work on Baywatch? Because I do think, you know, it was quite noticeable sometimes in Baywatch while he was filming Nights. He would, you know, if there was a big action scene or a save that involved the team, he'd always be there. But there was other times where he'd just be in the start of the episode and then maybe in the end of the episode. And you know, let's say Baywatch Nights became as successful as Baywatch. You know, could David Hasselhoff have kept that up over 2 shows? I don't know.
I think he would have I think he would have moved on, because if you remember, I don't know if people know this, but we looked into this off camera and found out that you know, he originally didn't want it to be part of Baywatch. He wanted this concept to be something else. So I think he was trying to, not that he didn't like the Baywatch series or anything, but I think he just wanted to, you know, do something different. And then he was kind of lumbered with the whole Mitch situation.
We got a number of suggestions of what might happen after season 3, and I'd like to go through and read those out. Some from this group and some from other people. So we've talked about a Teague spin-off, obviously, but also Old Man Mitch in season 3, which would have seen Mitch and Hobie 3 go on the run a la Logan. Another spin-off is Baywatch Mornings. When the host of a live breakfast show gets sick, he calls in Mitch Buchanan to take over. And in that series, Mitch delivers tips as a culinary chef. He reads the news dramatically. He gets hot over weather forecasts and orders the morning crew to scramble their emergency helicopter to get accurate reports. He hosts a segment called The Importance of Swimming Correctly and presents astrology info, asserting that viewers should keep watching the skies. He hosts a fashion session on how to wear shorts with an outside broadcast segment where he pulls surprise makeovers on members of the public. And in one episode, one of the guests on his morning breakfast show holds Mitch at gunpoint live and demands he doesn't reveal details of his super secret criminal operation. Anything to add to that?
I want to see Baywatch 24. Do the Jack Bauer thing only with Mitch Buchanan.
You want to see both shows accounted for plus the extra?
I think there's one where he becomes an Amazon driver and, he solves mysteries along the way when he's delivering the packages, as well as being a lifeguard and a private investigator and a paranormal expert.
Why don't we have one where he gets affected by some form of radiation and he turns into this mutant and he has to keep going on the run and to avoid the police.
Mitch.
I think Mitch Buchanan should be the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Wasn't he not already?
Or he could be in Under Siege because Erika Eleniak was in that movie. But he could be, he could do that sort of,
Can you imagine Mitch coming out of the cake instead of her?
I think if it would have been me, I would have gone for that. I'll do a musical, sure. I'll do a comedy. I'll do whatever weird, cutting edge TV we can get. But then, it depends what you're allowed to do, what you're given budget to do. But sometimes some of the most god-awful commercial properties are the most interesting ones to write for because they're unexplored country. They're untapped resources. You've got this wonderful playing field of just stuff you can really use, and that can be quite exciting.
I had a Hobie spin-off called Son of a Mitch. I don't know how far that would go, but
very good. Very good.
But maybe he could use his architectural training to explore feng shui and how systems are laid out in geometrical cult forms.
Or what about if Mitch worked for a foundation for law and government and drove around in a car that was bulletproof and had artificial intelligence?
That's the most original story I've ever heard, Johnny.
No, talking car would work. But yes, no, there's as you say, Andy, though, in the right hands, that sort of property could be, you could generate some really quality material, so it would be interesting to see, how that would have developed. But I certainly think in reality, just for me to conclude my opinion on it, is that they would have severely struggled in the 90s to push that series to any degree of quality, unless it went to, say, a different network or something and they were prepared to fund it.
It needed, maybe did it get the syndication?
Yeah. But only as part of Baywatch, as a package.
To be honest, I think, I think after watching season 2, for me, my closing statement is, they made the right decision by not renewing it. I think it would have been a really hard job to improve the ratings and get more people to watch it. Because even if you improve the script, the damage is done. When you think of how many people watched the original Baywatch, I know it was syndicated in all these different channels, but one report here is saying it had, nearly 1 billion viewers per week at one point. You would think something that popular, you could get a spin-off to work.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it never did.
I want to say their way of closing. I think it's a double-edged sword as well. There's been, in our last Baywatch 2 session tonight, there's been a sense of sadness that this is the last time we'll ever be exposed to this level of nuttiness for the first time. It really is a double-edged sword of TV that's so bad it's good.
Hoff wanted to do a Peter Guns type show, but they wanted him to stay with Baywatch, so I don't think the heart was in the show.
But it did launch Angie Harmon's career.
Did.
Not only that, but Eddie Cibrian, I mean, he went on to bigger and better things himself. Not to mention a Chuck Norris movie straight after that, but
And Dorian Gregory got Charmed, so
Yes, exactly. So it wasn't a failure for everybody. I think it was a stepping stone for a lot of people.
I want to thank Andy, Neil, and Johnny for making this interesting and for exposing me to the world of Baywatch Nights Season 2. I hate yous.
Your nights will never be the same.
With all my heart. My nights will never be the same. For the Caroline Combs podcast, you can find more information on our YouTube channel. If you just search for Caroline Combs, we have our first episode was on the Kurtzman era of Star Trek. So check that out. Give us a like. And thank you guys for letting me be part of this.
And I just want to echo that and say, as part of Chat Schmat, like this, we are on chatschmat.com, and on top of that, we cover, all sorts of entertainment, Doctor Who, any sci-fi shows, and we, cover Baywatch Nights now as well. So we'll be talking about that. We're in the middle of a new series, so keep your eyes peeled for some of those episodes coming up. And I just wanted to say thanks for putting this together as well, because it's the podcast you didn't think you wanted to watch about the show you never thought you wanted to watch either. So now you do want to watch all of it, and thanks for joining us all from Chat Schmat.
You'll see me on both of their podcasts because I'm part of both teams there. So as a member of the Caroline and as Johnny's partner on Chat Schmat, you'll see me on both. So I always got my opinions going there. So keep them watched, because like these guys, my nights will never be the same either.
No, I don't believe in the tooth fairy either. Thanks you guys for doing this. This is episode 5 of the Drinwick podcast, which is usually me sat by myself, raking over the coals academically, audio clips. It's been very nice to have you guys with me. I'm hoping Ian will come back to look at the Shield. FX is a Shield with me.
Looking forward to it.
Early next year. The Drinwick podcast is paid for by my patrons at Patreon. So patreon.com/Andy Luke. Thank you very much to them for doing that. And every week they get a poem, they get they get a short story a month, a serialized chapter a month, along with some bloggery and also very exclusive behind the paywall stuff. And behind the paywall isn't a big deal. It's £1 a month, 25p a week, and it's, for that you get offered so much. So thank you all. And shall we say it together?
Nights will never be the same.